So, Garo, tell me why it is you're doing an African History Week.
Well, first of all, my history students and I came up with the idea probably a year ago, but we were never able to put things in place for it to come off in time. We wanted to do something for emancipation, but as you know, emancipation is celebrated on the 1st of August every year. And during that time, naturally, we are on school vacation, July, August break. So it is very difficult to put together any kind of celebration in that regard within that third to the academic year. So we decided this year, in observance of African History Month, which is normally celebrated in the month of October, we would bring some type of awareness, celebration of African culture and history to our school. So we came up with the idea, that is the history students of Form 6 and myself came up with the idea of having an African History Week, which would take place from the 24th to the 28th of October in celebration of African History Month. Okay? The idea is that the students of St. Martin Central Secondary would get a first-hand look of African history, culture, traditions, customs, learn about great African scholars, inventors, intellectuals, because in reality, that history is often suppressed or not fully represented in our history books. So we really wanted to reach our students, most of whom are of African descent, and teach them something about their own, about their ancestors. So Wednesday of this week, we have Shabaka Cambon of the Emancipation Support Committee coming in to do a lecture with all the history students, Forms 4, 5, and 6, where he will talk on various aspects of African history.
They wane. They no longer seem to matter to us, right? There was a time when our people were discussing how we should dress in the Caribbean. What should be our formal attire based on our climate and so on. We were thinking about how we would build our Caribbean civilization. Do you all ever hear discussions about Caribbean civilization anymore? No. Even the people in CARICOM don't believe in CARICOM. Don't believe in a Caribbean community. And I tell you because I used to work there. Right? This is the tragedy that we now live. Right? We are becoming more and more accustomed to living a kind of borrowed, colonized existence where we take everything from everywhere. Look at Movie Town. Look at our architecture. Look around, brothers and sisters. Is there any attempt to try to build something that reflects us, that represents us in any way?
The lecture was a very insightful one. He came and he spoke about issues relating to Africa as well as African history. He raised some very important issues such as reparations for the Africans. He also talked a bit about certain aspects of African history such as Egypt. That was very interesting, and I don't think that much people knows about it.
That's where it begins. And you wake up 2016, right, a couple hundred years later, and you learn that Egyptians were white people. That's how it works. Now, as I said though, history is a battleground. Your ancestors come off the plantation in 1886 was the last time we were on, officially on a, that's not true. First, let me just share this with you all. 1886 is the date that slavery ends in Brazil.
And he also spoke about how important it is to be aware of all the great things that Africans did, because a lot of people think that, you know, Africans was just slaves all the time, but we were the ones that created all the great monuments in Egypt. A lot of people, he said, if you went into the museums in Germany and France, you would see all of Africa, all of the African history, you know, all the artifacts, and I think they are famous. Yeah. Germany and France are famous for those museums. Yes, and he told us about the importance of knowing where you come from, and not just Africa, but the effects, not just African slavery, but the effects of African slavery. He also spoke about,
I think what really stood out was the monuments in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
I think because when he spoke about the monuments that we like praise and stuff, and we see these people who are in statues and stuff, posters and high people. I think the true meaning of it really stood out where these people, where the public doesn't see the true meaning behind these statues, where these slave masters and stuff, these people who committed horrendous acts are praised and put as idols in our society, and they are not really seen as that. They are not, the true history behind it is not what it seems.
Interested in your development. So you take, for example, Woodford, and you have J.B. Philippe, who petitioned the Queen to stop some of the horrible things that Woodford was doing, who celebrated the Haitian Revolution, who, even though he was a planter in Trinidad who owned slaves, was against slavery and led the colored planter class to oppose slavery. When I get that, just to explain to you how I come to that conclusion, if you go to the 1920s, when the writing is on the wall that slavery is going to come to an end, the white planters in Trinidad form a pro-slavery society. Not a single free-colored planter joins them. Right? There's another guy, a Catholic priest called Francis de Ridder. Right? He's the first non-white, he's mixed Catholic priest in Trinidad and Tobago. He was a legend among our people for almost 100 years. None of y'all would know his name. He would have fought against the likes of Woodford and so on. Right? All those guys have been disappeared from our past. And that's just two examples. I can go on and on and on and on.
How he spoke about the whole issue that these European archaeologists, historians would go into Africa and actually try to take certain artifacts from Africa and try to give praise to Europe.
They would
whitewash history basically, and they would take all the praise and glory that is from originally to Africa, take it from Africa and try to bring it back to themselves.
And they were also talking about what's the guy's name? Thistlewood. Why he was asking us why do we know so many of these certain slaves, like the names of certain slaves, but we don't know any of the slave masters.
And in comparison to the Holocaust, how the people who
they know
the Jews, they knew
their
committed these acts against them and stuff.
Yes.
While us Africans, we don't even really know the names of the slave masters.
He was talking about giving us one name, Thistlewood.
Thomas
Thistlewood, and his diary, where he had what, 3,000
over 3,000
plus counts of rape.
Rape. And not once did he show any.
And the horrendous, how he used to document how badly he treated the slaves. And then one day he wrote about a couple of white guys that came down, and he was actually talking about how they were treating their slaves. So imagine how if he were treating them so bad, and for him to look at them and say, oh my God, look how terrible he treated his slaves. Imagine how bad they were worse than him.
And that was just one documented case, and the same way he treated them, there were others who treated slaves just as bad and stuff. That was like a everyday, that was the normal routine for planters to treat slaves that way, and this was just one case which we knew of.
And as well as he surprisingly kept, my attention throughout. You could see the passion for it, the love for history that all of us here could speak about, because we have a passion and a love for history. And he further make me after listening to him, I'm more like enthusiastic. I was already enthusiastic, but it's sort of later, increase it more, that it's something I want to pursue in university.
I love how
and at least I'm along. He said he's like a regionalist, like I am a regionalist, and I would definitely want to bring to some work that will help the region as a whole and stuff. Really insightful.
And it was just really engaging and insightful. I love it.
What I found was interesting is how he spoke about the whole issue that we as African people, more specifically Trinidadians, need to understand our history and where we came from in order to understand our present circumstances. That was very interesting. So when he spoke about that, he actually hit a chord inside of me, because I think as people we don't quite understand our history as well as where we came from and its significance.
I mean, that is it is unseen to look at, right? This is where we are headed, and this is why our leaders and most of our people have stopped paying attention to the things that are going on around us, right? This is why you would see boys from my old schools like St. Mary's and Fatima now wearing ties and jackets and things to school, because we no longer are involving ourselves even in critical questioning of what is appropriate. Imagine, walk outside right now. It's 100 degrees out there, right? Right? And let me tell you something. I work, when I do work, right now I'm a filmmaker. But when I do work, I always work at the managerial level. And I'm always expected to dress in a suit and tie every day. And every morning I had to laugh at myself when I look at myself in the mirror at how ridiculous I look. Walking out of my house into that 100-degree temperature, and then jumping into my car, and then turning the AC up to full, and then going into my office and sitting down there in a freezing office. Right? I always laugh at myself. It is something bizarre about it. I know Ivan Lachlan, Lloyd Best, all these guys, they had decided in the 70s that that wasn't going to be the future of our region. You know? And I'm just giving you one example. But we have literally stopped thinking about the idea of a Caribbean civilization, developing our own aesthetic, our own values and so on, our own mode of dress, our own culture.
And to close off the week of activities, we have a special fashion and cultural show plan where students of the school will be modeling African wear and doing cultural items. I can't forget, however, our fabulous display of African history and literature, which will be mounted in the assembly room, where students and teachers can, during the course of the day, whether it's break time or lunchtime, come in and just read and enjoy the information that we've put out.